Considering new siding for your mid-century home? Before you have a conversation or another one with a contractor or collect any more samples, let's talk about mid-century siding and how to make good choices for your house. There's a lot of bad advice about siding out there. Plus, during the 80s and 90s, when the appreciation for mid-century was at a low ebb, far too many of our sweet MCM ranches were rewrapped in narrow strip vinyl that does nothing for the shape and style of a mid-century house, covering up original colors and patterns and turning them into bland boxes. If your house has that kind of generic cover-up, or your siding seems to be damaged or in generally poor repair, you might be thinking about replacing or re-replacing your siding. Today's agenda is who to talk to about whether it's the right time to replace original mid-century siding, the right kinds of replacement siding you could consider that will help you keep or put back some mid-century flavor, and why vinyl is never going to be the right choice. More on that in a minute. I'm going to offer my standard word of caution. Don't take advice on your mid-century home from anyone who doesn't like mid-century as much as you do, and don't take advice on whether or not you need to replace something from the person whose job it is to sell you the replacement. If you're wondering about the specific status of your mid-century siding, hire a home inspector to come and give you an independent assessment of its state. Look, you're not shocked to hear me say that when in doubt, you should keep your original mid-century siding, but let's talk about that in a little more detail. The wood used to side original mid-century houses is old growth quality timber, even on the most modest 1952 early ranch like mine. It's redwood, it's cedar. This wood is denser grained, more naturally rot resistant, and sturdier than anything you can find at any lumberyard today. You're also less likely to find anyone who can, and you certainly are less likely to want to pay for someone to install siding with the craftsmanship and level of detail of original mid-century siding. Let's look at some examples and note some features and terminology. The most common siding type on a mid-century house is wide horizontal boards. The exposure, or the height of each board, is usually more than 8 inches, and the boards are usually quite long, 12 or even 16 feet. Each individual board has a taper, which helps them shed water and gives them a nice, subtle profile. When you stand on the sidewalk and look at a mid-century house, the horizontal lines keep your eye traveling side to side and help emphasize the long, low, linear quality of the house itself. This pairs well with deep overhanging eaves and wide picture windows. In an originally sided mid-century house, you'll also notice that there is no trim cutoff at the corner. Instead, the siding has a sort of invisible corner where a mitered edge, often a metal cap, disguises the place where two boards come together at a 90-degree angle and gives the edge of the house a slightly sawtoothed effect rather than terminating it with a sharp vertical line. Again, we're emphasizing the horizontal here. That's going to be something you probably can't even pay extra for today. You'll see this pattern of wide overlapping boards with a bevel profile rather than a square across the country from east to west coast. But that's not the only option. There are also areas where you might choose to, or certainly where an original mid-century home designer may have added emphasis by changing the siding from horizontal to vertical. A common pairing for raised ranches and split-level homes is to have a vertical board and batten style, where there are wider boards and narrow projecting boards that cover the gaps between them. You'll also find panel siding made from vertically striated pieces. This is really common on Eichler or Leichler homes out west. There may also be accent areas near the front door or above and below windows, like this example, where panels are combined with horizontal siding or vertical siding pieces. Another common detail on even a relatively modest mid-century home is to turn the siding at an angle in the gable roof to emphasize or draw attention to the roof slope. My favorite oddball or specialty siding type is the square panels found in a Lustron house. This was a type of kit home that had a moment of popularity and then flared out in the early mid-century era. You will know if you have seen one. They look like this. They come in a couple of really specific colorways, and Madison, Wisconsin happens to be blessed with maybe a half dozen of them. They are super charming and will not benefit from being resided in any other material. This, for example, is the sad effect of what happens when you take an iconic aluminum-sided Lustron home and redo it in vinyl. I am talking to you through the internet in a pre-recorded video. I cannot confirm for you that your original mid-century siding is in shape to be maintained for another 7 decades. I hope that it is, and I suspect that that's possible, but you want that assessment confirmed by someone who's actually been to your house. An inspector is a great choice. If you find that you must replace your original mid-century siding, or if your mid-century siding has already been replaced and you are re-replacing, let's talk about what you can do to create the opportunity for as much mid-century style as possible. When this comes up for my clients, I don't tend to recommend that you go for an actual wood siding as a replacement. It's not as available, it's quite expensive, and it's probably not going to be the quality of the original mid-century siding that was on the house in the first place. There are, however, several wood replacement products that I do recommend. Vinyl is never on that list. I recommend vinyl siding 0% of the time. To take a house that was once sided in any other material and wrap it in vinyl is like sealing it in plastic. It can create moisture and mold conditions that never came up before. It also is an unpaintable, unchangeable material that will lock you and all future owners into a color choice you might not love forever. And also, it's only going to come in that narrow 4-inch wide horizontal strip. That is a profile that was designed during the peak era of vinyl siding replacements, a time when the prime style was Victorian. Now, I don't love vinyl siding on a 3-story Victorian house either, but it is at least a closer match to some of the original choices that were there, although it'll wrap over all of the cool details that made that house stand out in the first place. On a mid-century house, it's going to turn what was once simple and elegant into bland and boring. On the other hand, I'll pretty happily endorse either James Hardie or LP Smartside as options. They come with a wide horizontal board option. They are both paintable, or you can get them in a pre-finished color so that you don't have to do maintenance on the house over time, as long as you don't change your mind about color. For more advice on mid-century house colors, check out this video. But from the options available to you from those suppliers, you want to choose the widest possible board. You probably want to go with a horizontal pattern for the most of the house, but you may also want to vary it. For example, you've got a split level. You might want to do horizontal on the widest, lowest part of the house and something vertical on the upper floor. You might want to switch to board and batten in the entry area or around the living room, anywhere that you're trying to place a little bit of emphasis. If they have a panel design or a shingle style available, you can use that as a contrasting emphasis area pattern. One other thing that's important to note, whether you're residing or repainting, trim should not be a contrasting feature element. You do not need to pick an accent color for the trim on your mid-century house. Your mid-century house does not need an accent, at least not on the trim. You can have an accent color. No one needs to lead a monochromatic life, but you want to use it strategically on places like your front door or color block area of the house, not draw little boxes around every door and window like a kindergartner's sketch. Anywhere you're putting that contrasting color, it's a pop. It will draw the eye. So you never want to use your accent color for trim. That's the wrong look even on a mid-century traditional house. Here's a counterexample that proves and disproves my rule. The field color for the house is this shingle done in gray, and the accent color is white. White trim is an option I recommend only for the most mid-century traditional of houses, but it works for this one. It's always been one of my favorite time capsule houses in the Madison area. But you can see how the trim accent around the door and on this little panel detail by the front door bleed out into a color block area that emphasizes the picture window. Again, color blocking rather than just color boxing. I so wish this house still had its original front door. If they ever put back an MCM door, this will become a perfect time capsule house again. The most important place to veto an accent color or a contrasting trim color is on the vertical corner piece that is on the vertical at the corner. Since we can't go back and do that lovely little end cap piece that gives you the saw blade edge to a mid-century house siding project, a modern siding project will have that sort of easy butt joint. It's just so much easier for the contractors to install these days. Make sure that it's done in the same color as the siding, not an accent. We've gone from easy DIY projects to whole house color choices to siding and replacement projects. I think we should go back to some level 2 and 3 changes you could make to your exterior. Front decks, front porches, replacing your front door or garage door with a more modern or a more throwback to MCM new model, and other questions like that. If you've got that kind of exterior uplift project in mind, next week's video is going to be for you.